evening, cult members, and welcome to Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Janice.
And welcome to our spoiler review of Episode 6 of the Falcon of Captain America and the Winter Soldier, called One World, One People. Okay, if you're going to complain about me calling it Captain America and the Winter Soldier, you have not been watching this show. And my headphone is so big. That's what she said.
And it was the title card at the end of the show.
Title card at the end of the show. So spoilers, obviously. Okay. For me, there's 3 things that I want to talk about, and 2 of them are going to take 75 minutes. So we're going to not do that. We're going to do our best to kind of cut it all down the best we can.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure how to talk about this episode. Based on just my feelings right now, we got the cool actiony, comic booky fight scene with the flag smashers and everything.
Yep.
And then we got the other part of comics, and that is the outside political world coming inside of the comic itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And oh, by the way, we still have the Contessa, we still have Sharon Carter, Agent Carter, the power broker, working for the power broker, all that conversation to do. So I'm really confused on what to talk about, like, in this episode. I'm amazed at how good the show is.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't wait to watch it all just together.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's start with the big opening fight.
Okay.
So the big, we start off from right where we left off in the last episode with the Flag Smashers taking the GRC Council.
Yep.
While the vote is trying to be done.
Yep.
And while they're all doing stuff inside, Bucky shows up. There's a news report of terrorist activities in New York and all of that kind of going on in the background as they're panning up out of the building. It feels very in between the Twin Towers. I know it's not the Twin Towers, but
right.
That was the architecture was kind of that way. It was in between the towers, that kind of thing. And the news thing was talking about we don't know what they want, and we don't have any other information. As well, that's all happening. Bucky shows up on the ground.
Right.
And Sam flies in, but it's kind of a streak and everything.
Yeah.
And they're talking back and forth with each other a little bit about what we're going to do, what the game plan is.
Right, through their microphones, their headsets, whatever.
Which is a huge step forward from at the beginning of the series where Bucky and Sam
were doing their own thing individually together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, they're definitely, they're BFFs now.
They're BFFs now. And Sam says, I called for backup, and Bucky gets interrupted by some random guy. Bucky gets let through security.
Yeah, he just walks through.
Walks right. They opened up the gates for him, essentially.
Yeah.
And as he's walking through, this guy walks up and says, hey, are you allowed to be here? And he turns around after Sam had said, hey, I called for backup.
Yeah.
And they took the face mask off like Black Widow had at the end of Civil War.
Yep.
And it's Sharon Carter.
Yep.
And then we have this big, just 10, 15 minute getting the GRC Council out, making them hostages, big fights, Balrock.
Wrong show.
It works. Bartok it goes right after Sam.
Right.
And
we get the big reveal of the new suit. Sam comes flying through the window, and dun da da da, and he's got what everybody expected. He's got the Captain America upgraded Wakanda suit with the wings.
Yes.
So now he is.
Well, the internet was calling him Captain Falcon. But he is it's
Black America.
Black. They called him Black Cap later on in the show, and he's and they were that was but it's almost it's as close as you can get in real world from the comic. Like it's got the white and the blues in all the right places and the goggles and everything like that.
It was cool.
It was cool.
I got chills.
I saved a couple of the screenshots that I found while I was getting ready to make the thumbnail for this, and it's the ones where he's got the wings fully sprayed out and he's carrying the shield and stuff. That will probably be a cover photo on my Facebook page at some point in time. The fight is broken down into the air group and the ground group, and the ground group gets is Bucky, and he gets kind of lost in a phone call with Carly,
right? Which she totally played him, and it's I'm trying to figure out how I feel about the fact that she played him. Like, is this the new Bucky? Like, because as the Winter Soldier, he wouldn't have given a crap, right? He wouldn't have talked to her. He wouldn't have cared that she wanted to open up and have this conversation. So this is like the new
This
Bucky.
is the White Wolf Bucky. Like this
except it totally backfired. This is exactly what she wanted, was to
He tries to talk her off the ledge one last time.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to. And that's, I love and appreciate that Bucky is now that person, not the Winter Soldier.
Yeah, it's just a little, like, it's going to be a moment of adjustment.
It's going to be a moment of adjustment, which is, goes into later on. They have two armored trucks. One they set on the Flag Smasher set on fire on purpose to make Bucky try to save them to get him out of the fight that's going on.
Yeah.
So Carly knew that that's who he was, and she leaned into that. Really heavy.
Yeah.
We also get the Falcon gets Red Wing back with the new upgraded suit. This is fun helicopter versus Falcon fight going on, whatever.
Yeah.
And then John Walker shows up with his shield.
Yes.
Which
lasted exactly as long as we all expected it to.
Actually, it lasted a little longer than I thought.
I thought as soon as, was it Carly that, like, hit it away or whatever into the building, like, pretty much off the bat. And I'm like, well, that's done. And it actually fell to the ground and still seemed to be in at least a round shape.
It had some round shape, but pretty dented, like I've been hitting helmets, kind of like hitting helmets.
Yeah.
But John shows up in the fight to stop the Flag Smashers while Bucky's trying to save the GRC members.
Yeah.
And it leads to this really kind of fun fight with John winning versus one, winning versus two, and then there's 5 of them, and he's down on the ground and they're all pounding on him, and his he had welded his Medal of Honor medallion on the inside of the shield to be a reminder.
Right. And in the last episode, like, there was, people were saying he's melting it down to weld it, use it to weld into.
Yeah.
But he actually, put it on the inside to remind himself, kind of, so maybe he's not
remind himself
unredeemable.
To remind himself of who he was before the pressure of being Captain America, which led him to the super soldier serum, which led him off like the
deep end.
Yeah. And looking upon it now, like that, the pressure of being Captain America is what got to him. It wasn't he was trying to do the right thing. He was, he thought he probably had more power than he really did, or at least he hadn't earned the right to use the power that he kept trying to abuse.
Yeah, it was almost like he thought, I have the name and I have the shield, so now I'm Captain America. I am everything that Steve Rogers was, and it's like, no, you need to, put in the work, and it's hard, and just slapping a name on you is not. It
becomes really evident later on in the episode when Sam becomes Captain America in the public eye because of the way his speech was and everything. We'll get into that political part in a minute. The fight goes on different levels. Sky, different levels, lower down. Bucky and one of the Flag Smashers are hitting each other with a steel beam. Like it's just It's a great fight. But Carly drives the second armored car off the building and it gets caught in the rafters of this construction site and what's going on.
Yeah, so she's going to take out the rest of the GRC and potentially Bucky too because he's underneath it.
Yeah, and she said earlier, before everything kind of happens, that she was willing to die as long as the move, there's enough going on in the movement to make it go forward. And so she was willing to die. Her people were not ready for that.
No. And we kind of talked about that. It's like, that's cool that you're ready to die, but if everybody isn't,
yes,
then
she's ready to die, and she's willing to kill the GRC members,
right,
to get attention.
Yeah.
So she has really gone off the deep end.
Yeah.
And that's not super soldier serum. That is, she's done everything that she feels she can to get everybody's attention. It's not working, and so now she's just escalated to a point where she's beyond helping.
Right.
And so it's just, and we'll get into that part in a second. The truck starts to fall. Bucky's on the bottom. Is he going to catch it, Superman style? It's not going to happen. And the truck stops, and they pan from the bottom looking up from where Bucky is to where the back of the truck, and it's John Walker.
Yep.
In one frame, they redeem John Walker.
Yep.
And now, again, from the comics, John gets redeemed after his parents get killed, and he goes on the killing spree. And that's how he becomes U.S. agent. So he gets redeemed here, by showing up and helping Falcon and Bucky in the fight against the Flag Smashers.
Ooh.
So sorry.
Ooh.
Flag Smashers. I didn't mean to say that. That's not even that's not even fair. But he gets redeemed by showing up, and then he gets redeemed even more by saving the GRC members.
Yeah.
And then, as he's holding on to it, the Flag Smashers are just jumping on top of him. They're just piling on. And he gets a couple of them or whatever, and he finally succumbs to the waves and waves and waves of these fighters. And the truck starts to fall again, and then it stops. And it's like hanging off the side. And you're like, how is this even possible?
Yeah.
Well, Sam, in his Captain Falcon uberness, whatever, is holding it up with the rocket from the suit.
Yeah.
Not him holding it up. A lot of people are probably going to say that online.
No.
But he's holding it tight, and the rockets are holding it.
It was him and Red Wing or something Red Wing, couple of Red Wing-esque things that kind of attached themselves,
and then pushed them,
and then everything pushed.
Yeah. And so he did that with help of the suit and his abilities, but it wasn't him as the super soldier doing it. He was a regular guy who happened to have a really cool suit.
Right.
Thank you, Wakanda. But he's able to save them. And then there's this really fun okay, we're gonna have this standoff between the Flag Smashers, Bucky and Sam and John at the bottom of the building. It's like, here we go, this is gonna be awesome. And then Bartok shows up and smokes it all out to help get the Flag Smashers out. And I'm like, no, we want the big uber fight. We want that. They get split up. Sam follows Carly one way, John and Bucky goes another way, and uses an app to capture the other ones. Which I just thought was
It was funny because the guy who's 100 and whatever years old and still doing the music from the 40s and whatever uses modern technology to capture these people.
He uses the app that they use to activate everybody against them, which is just it was so good. But the big thing out of this...
How does he even know how to use a cell phone?
And he has to use his right hand because his left hand would just smash through the glass. But the big thing that comes out at the end of this is the big fight. Sharon stops Carly, and they have a conversation about when Sharon was in Madripoor, Carly came there, and she kind of saw something in her, and please come back and work for me.
Yeah. You kind of got the impression that Carly was maybe her kind of like her understudy or her protege.
Yeah.
And
Carly makes a comment about, you want to run the world. You want to run the world because of the wrongs that's been done to you, and I just want to save the world.
Yeah.
Is so like they're both kind of doing on the same track, but they're not necessarily they're going in the same direction, but not on the same track.
Right.
That's pretty much what it comes down to. And then Bartok shows up and says to Sharon, like, you as the power broker need to pay me more for spying on them.
Right.
And so he calls her the power broker, and Carly calls Sharon the power broker.
Yep.
However, I don't think she is the power broker.
No.
It doesn't make any sense. We'll get into speculation with the post-credit scene later, but they make a point of calling her the power broker, and it's very obvious that she's not.
Yeah, well, and we talked about it a little bit. Like, if you are the power broker, if you are the biggest, baddest baddie, and have got your fingers in all these pies and all of this,
right,
and running everything, the power broker's watching, you are not going to present yourself to people as the power broker, because if they get captured or turned or whatever, they could give you up.
Yeah.
So you're never going to just let Joe Citizen on the street know that you're the power broker.
Right.
She's, probably working for him, probably like his right-hand woman. But yeah, I do not think she's
I think
power
that there's
broker.
something else there. We Bartok shoots Sharon. Sharon shoots at Bartok. Carly shoots at Bartok. Bartok dies. Sharon is hit in the abdomen, not like Gravis wound or whatever.
The hip or something.
The hip or something, whatever. But Sam shows up, and Sam and Carly have a discussion, and then have an all-out fight.
Yep.
And in that fight, Sam does not fight back.
Yep.
He doesn't stand down. He keeps standing back up.
Yep.
Every time he beats her, she beats him down. But he does not. He does the Luke Skywalker, I'm only playing defense. I'm gonna win by not fighting.
Right.
And which is something that needs to happen with Carly. Carly needs to understand, like, you're doing it the wrong way. You can't win this fight this way.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you.
Kill your view into, you can't kill your way to victory.
And it's very much that irate, hysterical teenager that you just finally, you just go over and you give them a hug until they calm down. Like that's what it feels like he's trying to do to her.
Or a 3-year-old who's having
or
a temper
3-year-olds who have a but he plays defense the entire time in that fight, and Carly's obviously winning, and a couple times like finally knocks the shield out of his hand and knocks him down. Again, he's not super powered,
right?
And
it's just him in the
it's just him in the shield and the suit, and she goes to do the killing final blow, and Sharon shoots her.
Yep.
And as much as I love Erin, the actress Erin, as much as I love her, and I would love to see her in more stuff inside the Marvel universe, Carly as a character was never going to stop.
Right.
And as much
I knew like pretty early on that this was going to be her outcome,
right?
That she was going to be killed, not necessarily by Sharon, but that she would not stop until she died, because she was never going, like I said, she was never going to kill her way to winning. Right.
It was just never going to happen. And Sam holds her in his arms as she apologizes as she dies, right. But at that point in time it doesn't matter anymore,
right?
But he takes her out, flies in, wings out, carrying the body, whatever, and the GRC members are all there.
Yep.
Now let's go into the next big part of what this episode was. Sam specifically addresses the 3 main members of the GRC, the one senator who demoted John,
yep,
the one who flew the helicopter, and then the other member who was like, we don't even need to do a vote. Let's just send the military.
Yeah. And they were like, oh, thanks for saving us. Now we're going to go off and do what we came here to do to begin with.
Yeah,
they haven't learned a lesson.
They hadn't learned the lesson.
At all.
And Sam has... I'm never going to be able to give it enough justice only seeing the one.
An amazing
It is
speech.
an amazing diatribe. Diatribe's not the right word. Speech about what it means when you have the power to do right and make decisions for people who you are supposed to represent, but those people aren't represented in the room.
Right.
And more than once, Sam says something along the line of, you're making decisions for people who aren't in the room. And the senator says, well, you don't understand. This is a hard decision. And Sam says, of course it's a hard decision. And
that's why you are a senator.
And that's why you're a senator. But this is not the way to do it.
Yeah.
And this is and finally the senator says, you don't understand. And Sam says, what do you mean I don't understand? I'm a black man in America wearing the Captain America outfit. I am not superpowered. I am not blonde hair, blue eyed. I am not white skinned. Half the people who are standing in this circle right now hate me for wearing this outfit. And I know they do. Don't tell me I don't know how hard things are.
Yeah.
And how hard the decisions are. And my mind is like, this is a comic book show. This is a comic book show. We had this amazing, awesome, huge, awesome, cool fight over multiple layers and divisions. And you're having this deep philosophical speech about race in America specifically, but on the planet as a whole, in telling people you need to be fucking better.
Yeah. I wish.
It's so good.
Can we get? Can somebody actually tell the current political people this? Can Sam fly in?
Maybe. But this, a lot of people are going to complain, and not the people who love the show. The people who love the show are going to get it. Like, they get what the show is, and they get what comics are and stuff like that.
Complain.
But if I were to take this particular speech and drive it to Georgia and show it to people in the state senators in Georgia or in Arizona where we live, what's going on here right now, and show them this speech, it would be over their head.
Yeah.
It would be completely over their head. And it's not because it's technical or misplaced or anything like that. It's because they just don't want to listen. The people who need to hear this speech,
I don't even. I mean, are we going to go down this?
But it's hard not to when the show that we just spent 6 weeks watching was about PTSD of everything that happened with the snap and everything. But also, the show was about being black in America. And they did it multiple times. Watchmen dealt with this too. Watchmen dealt with this in a very different way, but had the same conversation about being something other than the majority in the show. And so
okay. Here's my political soapbox. I think that these people make too much money making changes for their friends that don't affect any of the rest of us. And I mean, I'm not obviously not saying I'm black. I'm not talking about black issues specifically. I'm talking about there are a myriad of issues out there that what he said. They are not representing everyone.
Right.
They are representing themselves and their rich friends. That's my political statement.
I work for a municipality in the state of Arizona. We have a picture on our wall of the last city council. The new city council is different. We haven't got the new one, but the last city council, and it was 9 white men, all over 55.
Yes, our new city council actually has
is very
several
diverse
black
now.
people
Yes.
and a couple of women
and
yeah.
Hispanic, and there's an Indian guy and stuff.
Yeah.
But that is a great example of what they're talking about in this speech. Is the people in the room are making decisions for people who they think they're helping, and there's nobody in that room who needs the help is getting that.
Yeah.
Is going to be in that room, like, and that's what we were talking about earlier with the GRC. The GRC was built to be this thing to help those who got brought back,
right?
And
except none of the people that got brought back were actually in the GRC,
right? And so,
so you're making decisions for people that you know nothing about.
Yeah,
technically,
and you're also using the GRC as this visual representation of what American aid has been over the years. Not so much the UN and not so much UNICEF, although they have their issues at different times too. But specifically American corporate aid to third world countries and whatever.
Yeah.
And so just the concept of what this speech is saying, what's going on in our real world, what has happened in the past in our real world, and Sam also saying, I'm doing this. Everything I'm doing here is because of who I am. I'm not enhanced. I'm not superpowered. I'm not any of this stuff. I'm just doing what I think is right for the right people.
Yep.
And that was his conversation he was having with Carly early on before the fight and in the previous episodes and stuff like that. So he was taking Carly's point of view, but putting it in a easier jar
to digest.
Yeah.
Yes. And I would just say before we move on to the less political part of it, that for all the people who are going to complain that this was too political or too, just give me my comic book heroes and not force the black agenda or whatever it is they're going to say, I will just say that black people are still being killed for no reason.
Right.
Every day.
Right. And they're being held down by corporate America, and they're being held down by voter restrictions, and they're being held down by
so when all that stuff isn't happening anymore, you can totally come out and say, take that stuff out of my comic book movie, but until it's fixed,
that's what
there you go.
Black Panther, that's what Killmonger was kind of pointing out.
Yeah.
Like, there's millions of our people in the world that have been held down for years and years and years, and we have the ability to take back what is ours. He was off the deep end, but what he was saying was being said here too, but it's being said in a much more you are the people here to do better. Let's have everybody in the conversation. So they took what Killmonger was saying and made it a little bit easier to digest for some people.
Right.
But that
without
speech,
the killy.
It's not killy. They get done with the speech. Isaiah Bradley's watching it on TV, by the way. So it's a really cool, like he kind of gives the nod of acceptance, and then there's a whole.
He kind of sits up a little straighter,
like a little proud and stuff like that. There's a scene later on where Sam goes and sees Isaiah. Isaiah's still snarky because it's Isaiah. He
picks up this giant tree, and takes it over and puts it on the.
Just to remind you, he's still a badass in his 70s. Isaiah calls him, "You're not quite Malcolm or Martin."
Or Martin,
but he's like,
and Sam's like, "No,
whoa, I don't want that." But they at the end, they take. He takes Isaiah and his grandson, who is in the comic becomes Patriot for the Young Avengers, which they're setting up more and more. The Young Avengers, West Coast Avengers, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, but he takes him to the Captain Rogers display at the Smithsonian, I think is what it is, and he leads him to this section, and there's a section there now for Isaiah Bradley. Yep. So there's a statue of him, and
I'm not crying, you're crying.
Right. So in this show, you get representation for Isaiah. You get redemption for John, even though he did something, and you actually feel for Carly's death. Like you, all the three things that happen, and you get this big political speech, and you get this awesome fight sequence.
And you get Sharon Carter's the power broker.
And you get Sharon Carter's possibly the power broker. There's some wrapping up to do at the end. They get the Isaiah thing. There's the barbecue at Sam's home with the boat and the dock, and everybody's taking pictures with Sam. And Bucky shows. Oh, Bucky. So Bucky goes and talks to Mr. Takamomi. Tasabi, the old Korean guy that he was hanging out with, and
right, his son was the one that he had killed.
Yes, and he shows up at his apartment and sits him down and tells him, like, he was killed by the Winter Soldier, who was me. I didn't have a choice in the matter, and so there's all this kind of closure that kind of wraps a nice little bow on that. I would like to have seen more with the two of them. Either his acceptance of the information and maybe Bucky kind of telling a little bit of the story, but I get it.
I get that, but I also appreciate it's not what was going on there wasn't about any of what happened after that.
Right.
It wasn't, here's why you need to forgive me. It wasn't what his reaction was. It was Bucky needed to, this was what what Sam was telling him in the last episode. Yeah. If you can go out there and make a change for one person, start with one and then move forward. That was it. So I get it that you kind of want more of that conversation or how that played out, but that wasn't the point.
That wasn't the point, and I appreciate that. Emotionally, though, from my point of view, I'd like to have seen another minute and a half with that scene, just to kind of see how it was received. But it wasn't about how he received it and stuff. And then Bucky leaves the book with all the names crossed off with the psychologist.
Yep.
I'm the most pissed about this in the entire episode because that's Steve's book that he was writing all the notes in.
Yeah.
And then he turned around and Bucky used it as his notebook, and then he turns around and gives it some random doctor. Like, you can't give it to somebody else. You can't give it to the Smithsonian.
Maybe she'll give it to the Smithsonian.
Maybe she will.
But it was a symbol, right?
Totally the right.
I'm done.
I'm better. I'm good. I'm cool.
Yep.
We have the barbecue at Sam's
at the dock. The best barbecue ever.
Best barbecue ever.
Giant prawns, shrimp on the barbie. Right. Giant shrimp, and they had music, and they were. It
was a straight on crab broil.
Yeah.
Crab broil? Yeah, that's what they call it.
Shrimp boil,
crab boil, whatever. Anyways, the best thing that comes out of that, the best two things that come out of that is Bucky's standing on the picnic table with his mechanical arm out, his left arm out, and two of the kids are hanging from it, and he's just like busy having a conversation over here with somebody else, which I just thought was awesome.
I think it was actually Sam's sister that he was talking
to. Yeah. But the last scene is Sam looking off across the ocean at the sunset and stuff, and kind of with a smile on his face, like, I did the right thing. This nice little closure, whatever. And Bucky comes up and kind of taps on the shoulder, and they kind of have a moment looking at the ocean, and then they go back to the party.
Yep.
After the speech, Sam goes to walk away, and
after the speech with the GRC
stuff, to go back to that for a minute to kind of tag into that last scene. As Sam walks away, he looks at John and kind of gives him a nod of acceptance, like, okay, you did a good job. And then him and Bucky walk off, and Bucky's like, I had a text. I wasn't paying attention. All I heard was Black Captain America. When did that happen or whatever? And kind of it's like good friends, in the most serious point of what's going on.
Yeah.
And he just gives him a little rib to kind of bring him back to earth. In this episode 2, we get John Walker, as I think we've talked about it for a hot second, but John Walker gets redeemed. The Contessa and John's wife were in the room where the trial, where he got stripped of all of the
Yep.
title and everything,
Yep.
are in there. They're talking. The Contessa has no patience, and she finally.
What is he doing?
And the comment of it's probably the helmet that he's struggling with because you don't want to mess up the hair. But John walks out from the back in the black and red and grayish U.S. agent outfit that's straight from the comics.
Yep.
So he gets redeemed. Now we have the U.S. agent. We also had a scene when 4 of the Flag Smashers were being transported away. We also they were put into the back of the truck, and one of the security guards walked over and said, "One world, one people."
Yep.
As they were being told in the background, we're going to the raft. They close the door off. They drive for a little bit and then explodes. They pan over and it's Zemo's butler. So you have that whole thing, whatever. And Zemo watches the news and kind of grins.
Yeah, and we were, as soon as they said the raft, we're like, well, we're gathering quite the little gang together to break out of the raft, and then boom. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So Zemo obviously did the whole whatever from a distance kind of thing.
He still has the ability to pull strings.
Pull strings, yes. He still has agents out there in the world.
Yes.
So we get a post-credit scene, and it's Sharon in the trial room with the senator from the GRC and a couple other members. He explains to her that we're going to right some wrongs and bring you back into the fold. You are getting a full pardon, and your position at your old agency, I believe, is available if you're willing to take it. And she accepts it and everything.
Right.
And then
This is how we got Hydra in S.H.I.E.L.D.
in the first place.
Hello.
And there's an applause and everything, and she walks out triumphant. And she goes outside in the state capitol, and she picks up her phone and rings it, and it rings. And she said, "We've lost the super soldier serum program, but we now have access to advanced tech and
government secrets
and stuff," and hangs up the phone, and that's the end. So we have been discussing for the last week with the Shang-Chi trailer dropping this week. It seemed a little weird that a movie that's coming out in September gets an April trailer release. And
show. It's a show, right?
No,
it's a movie? Okay. I thought it was a show.
No, we have Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals this year, and then we have No Way Home in December. So the Marvel Sony multiverse crossover thingy, whatever was going on there. So we have 4 more Marvel movies to come out this year, plus Loki, What If, Hawkeye just finished filming, so that's supposed to come out at the end of the year or the first of next year. So she hangs up the phone, and so we've been talking with the Shang-Chi trailer dropping this week. It seemed a little interesting that they dropped it, like we said, in April.
Yeah.
And they made a big point of introducing the proper Mandarin, not Trevor Satterley. And so we have been speculating all week that Sharon is actually not the power broker. She is somebody that is working,
reports to the power broker
or is
right-hand woman,
whatever, of the power broker. And we are speculating now that the power broker is actually the Mandarin.
Yeah. Yep. And there was a couple of things in the rewatch of the trailer after we did our review where you can see some stuff that makes it look like they're definitely
in Madripoor. And there's kind of little little things like New Rockstars did a really good job of kind of catching on some stuff.
Pointing out. He even said that he had to stare at his computer very closely
to get some of the stuff.
To get some of the stuff. But and it makes sense that the power broker would be, someone like the Mandarin who is been alive for a very long time, and so he would have obtained a lot of power.
He would obtain a lot of power and a lot of connections in different places. And especially with what the Shang-Chi kind of, or Shang-Chi, I've heard it pronounced 3 different ways. I'm going with Shang-Chi. What it's kind of laying out with the Asian culture and Madripoor kind of being in that region of the world.
Yeah. It's kind of like a Singapore.
It's in that general area of the Philippines, Indonesia, kind of on the Marvel map.
Right.
It's in that kind of general region.
Right.
But the idea of him being able to, if he loses a fight to his son, but is working on different things in the background of all these different shows, it would be really interesting to see if he's like the not the Thanos level big bad, but the big bad behind everything that Hydra was in the first like that little stretch of Marvel. A lot of people complained for a long time that Marvel villains weren't very deep.
Yeah.
And we're only around for one thing.
Right.
And Hydra as the entity was around for a few of those.
Yeah.
And by the way, while all the Hydra stuff was going on, we still had Thanos in the background doing the Thanos thing. I'm wondering interesting if they use the Mandarin, a Earth-based villain, to be the bad guy in the background of all this Earth-based stuff. Oh, by the way, we have Eternals, which is all going to be cosmic and weird and full-on Jack Kirby
Right.
and whatever. And we still have Fury and the Skrulls out there doing this, the sword thing.
Yep.
So, so the idea of were to have the Earth-based thing while we set up the cosmic stuff with Galactus or MODOK or Doom or whatever ends up being the big bad for the next few phases. Having Sharon be the right-hand person for the power broker / Mandarin brings a connective tissue from early on and bringing it forward, like you're doing with Sam now,
right?
What you're doing with Wanda and Doctor Strange and stuff like that. So you have this connective tissue to early on. We've moved past the original 6 Avengers. We've moved on to the next story. We have overlap of stuff, and then we're going to work our way to the stuff. That's just speculation of the Marvel universe as we go forward. I'm sure we missed a ton of stuff. We've gone 43 minutes, 42 minutes, and so there's I'm sure a ton more. If we got too political for you, I'm really sorry. It's something important that needs to be talked about, especially with the confines of this show. So if you're still here around for this part, I'm sorry if you got offended by that. Thanks for the view. If you want to have a educated conversation, please be in the comments about it. I'm totally cool with it. Just be nice. There's a requirement around here. So, and let us know what you thought of the rest of our reaction to this last episode of Captain America and the Winter Soldier in the comments down below. Like I said, please be nice. Willing to have a conversation. Just be nice. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and follow us on all the social media stuff: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or all the Twitter. And until the next whatever we're going to watch, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, cult members.